Hey everybody, this is Aaron the Pedantic. I'm not showing my face today because I'm still incredibly sunburnt and it looks absolutely terrible. But what I wanted to do was today I'm going to go over the referee book in Swords and Wizardry. This is part of the box set. And this, basically the box set comes, if you get the digital, it comes with all kinds of stuff. I'll go over that probably somewhere else. And I'll do like a full video, just like doing a quick review of everything and just showing as much as I can, just so people can see it and just doing the quick stuff. But this is really just a time for discussing stuff with the audience whenever comments come and just rendering my impressions as I go through it. I've already read it, so this isn't like, a complete dry run or anything like that, but still, I think it's I'll be more in depth here than I will be in the review. So, referee book. I love the art on the cover because this is just pure D&D to me. So you have this guy here who's probably a thief or something of that nature who's picking a lock. You've got your warrior types overlooking, trying to make sure there's nothing in the darkness. And of course, there's all kinds of stuff in the darkness. But is it really there? It depends on your wandering monster check, right? Then you have this evil creature that's overseeing everything within the dungeon. And is it the dungeon master? Maybe. Or is it just whatever built the damn dungeon or whatever is keeping everything functioning the way it is? I love it. Very evocative stuff. So great cover by Michael Sirigos. I don't know. But if you didn't already know, Matt Finch, that's the guy who wrote the thing. And I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it a little bit. I think it's awesome. It doesn't mean it's perfect, but there is no such thing as perfect when it comes to RPG stuff. Some people might have different opinions on that, but here's the very first thing that it starts telling you, and it's just basically the bullet points here are really important because it gives you the philosophy of what Swords and Wizardry is supposed to be. Basically just, the rules are guidelines. There is not a rule for everything, and when in doubt, make a ruling. That is going to echo throughout because there are a lot of gaps missing, but that's what happens when you have a referee book that's only 58 pages, including, the cover and all the other stuff. So it's not a long book, and it expects you to make some stuff yourself. A fair bit of stuff. It's not going to leave you hanging when it comes to stuff that you absolutely need to make the game function. But at the same time, for people that like a little bit more, you might be left a little bit wanting, but that's okay. So you have some information here about designing a dungeon adventure, and it's pretty solid advice. One of the things I know that this is to be expected, but the fact that we have a sample, map dungeon level with, completely keyed with the symbols. And not only that, you have some explanations over like just the general notes for the level, along with wandering monster charts. And you've got, treasure for the rooms. You've got some unique monsters that are included. You got a lot of stuff here. And then you have how to fill in your map key, along with, a map key. This was one of the things that, coming into the hobby with 5e, and who knows, maybe in the DMG and 5e, it actually has this stuff spelled out. I didn't see it, but maybe it's there. This is something that you could find in older books, older D&D editions. You could find all this stuff. So I would go back and I'd look at old school maps and I would just be like, oh shit, it's got this thing again. I don't know. What does this thing mean? What does that thing mean? All that kind of stuff. Well, you got it here. So that is helpful. You have just how to handle different things. You've got just the general mechanics for secret doors. Of course, you've got The elves, they're going to have specific extra chances, it's mentioned here. Same thing with listening at doors. How's that supposed to kind of work? Opening doors, you got stuck doors, and how's that supposed to work? I do think it's interesting. You can have multiple characters up to 3 try and smash it together. But if they one of the things that to me was a little bit unclear, if they spill into the room and should automatically lose initiative if there are monsters within. So that kind of surprised me, that they should automatically lose initiative. I would see that if they fail. If they fail their first attempt, I would see that 100%. But if they succeed on their first attempt, if you're just busting a door down, I mean, that's what SWAT does, isn't it? And they win initiative all the time. That's just my personal opinion. This whole thing about traps and pits, I mean, it just kind of says in general, if they're walking over it, they should have a 2 in 6 chance to spring it. And then here it has a suggested rule. And I like that they include stuff like this because, basically what Matt's trying to do is he's saying, here's one way that you may think of this, because you may take this in this direction, and this might be the kind of ruling that you make, because, you may have a dwarf that says, well, I'm good with stonework and stuff like that. Shouldn't I be able to notice things regarding, traps and pits that have to do with stonework more likely? Then yeah, maybe you make that ruling. Maybe you don't. Maybe they have to actually search the square and all that kind of stuff first. And maybe even then they can just tell if you've got slopes or whatever. So, stuff to think about. It talks about dungeon levels here. This is something that, again, my new school brain didn't know when I first got into the OSR. Even though if you asked me in the context of a video game, I understood it completely, because it's something that video games have used for a long time. You go deeper into the dungeon, the things get more difficult and the rewards get better, basically. Yeah, I mean, when we'll get more into that in the treasure section. But one of the things to note here that's different than basic and BX and all that kind of stuff is you have this thing called challenge levels. So you do have your dungeon levels, and you can generate your encounters based on dungeon levels, but it breaks it up into this thing called challenge levels. So you have 2d6 challenge level 1 creatures. So then what you do is you look at challenge level. So what is challenge level? Challenge level is basically going to be an approximation of how difficult a creature is based on their XP value. So it's not based off of their hit die or anything like that. It's based on their XP value. And why that's probably a good way to do things is we all know that if you are adding special features that a creature has, then even though their hit die is going to be comparable with something else that may have, I don't know, it may give you 400 XP. If this one has a save or die based off of a shooting a dart into your stomach or something like that, then it's reasonable that it would yield greater XP because the risk is higher. So that's basically kind of what you're getting here. And again, that's something that you'll see more of whenever we do the monster book, but that's just the general thing. How do I feel about challenge levels? I'm okay with it. I mean, I think it's fine. It works perfectly fine. Again, it's just a rough outline. And I do like this note here that players are never guaranteed that every encounter is beatable at a particular level, though. Survival depends on knowing when to run and when to get tricky. Assuming that every encounter is designed to fit the party's combat capabilities is a sure way to die. I really appreciate that. Spider, it's good to see you again, says SWAT has a bonus to initiative after breaking down a door, +1 per level, new house rule. Yes, the much vaunted SWAT class. What else we got here? So you have challenge levels that go, quite high. And again, the hit die are going to vary depending. I mean, it goes pretty high. You got purple worms and titans and liches and iron golems and elementals, 16 hit die ones, and the demon prince Orcus up at the tippity top. So I like the breakdown. I think it works. So you have here, basically saying that you should consider all of that stuff. Guidelines, things are going to get a little bit messy because not only do you have this system that you're using, but also what is the theme of your dungeon, what is the ecology and all that kind of stuff. And so just you can use that as a tool. The challenge level chart you can use as a tool, or you can just, I don't know, do Castle Greyhawk or something with it and just be like, it's all just me rolling that stuff and it's just filled with whatever. And I don't really care why it's there. You have to kill it or get past it and get its treasure. So here you have the Wandering Monster check, 1 in 6 each turn, but you can change it as needed. I wish that was highlighted a little bit more, but whenever you have stuff like this, that's a procedure, I don't like for it to just be the bottom paragraph in a section, really. Just because I'd like it to be bold or something. That's, if I could offer any constructive criticism there we go. So this talk about wilderness adventures. I mean, at first it basically says as a referee, you should probably start with a dungeon, and and your players are probably going to start there too, and then they're going to want to branch out into wilderness adventures and all that kind of stuff. And for the most part, it's this is really pretty not self-explanatory. It's common sense. Just talking about what kind of population you're probably going to be dealing with, and the density and the movement rate's going to vary depending on vehicles and all that kind of stuff. It's not very specific. And this is probably going to be one of the things that I'm going to start knocking it on, is the fact that I think it would benefit from a little bit more support as far as the travel stuff goes. So, I mean, the getting lost feature, basically, if they are lost, then you've got good ways of making that work. But as far as how often do you check to see if they're lost and all that kind of stuff, I don't really see anything like that. There's nothing really that I've been able to find that gives you a procedure or a sequence of procedures to determine, like how a day of travel is handled. I think it would really benefit from that. I mean, you can make these checks right here, and you could say maybe it's every hex or something like that. But depending on that unit of measurement, the percentages may make more or less sense. So I think that's kind of, it's not really the best thing, basically. So if somebody knows something that's been put out by them that maybe clarifies or anything like that, I'd be happy to hear about it. But that's one thing that I might knock it with. So you have vehicle movement rates, and it's pretty legit how it's handled by terrain, all that kind of stuff. If they're mapping it, how's that going to affect the speed? You're going to have to do a fair bit of calculations if you're going by all of this. And there's any kind of extenuating circumstances, which there will be. Encounters in the wilderness, again, there's nothing to say how frequently you should check, or if you should use the 1 in 6 as before. I wouldn't say that would be appropriate in every kind of terrain, but you do have charts to determine what they do encounter if they encounter something. So again, this is something that I think should have been in there. But if you have your own procedures and I feel like most people that are going to really like this system, they're probably going to have, if not, they don't, or if they do not already have their own procedure, they're going to feel free just figuring it out for themselves. And there's a lot of that with this. And again, all of this is still basically going to be just a suggestion more than anything else, guidelines, because, maybe the population density of kobolds is actually going to be greater in this place than that place. Maybe they're just a mind creature because you want to go more into the mythological aspect of kobolds. Maybe that's something you want to go with. So I mean, it should always be a guideline, but I would have appreciated more procedures. So here you have something specific for dragons to figure out how old they're supposed to be, which says a lot about how powerful they are. And terrain specific undead. Okay. So now we get to special combat rules. We already have special combat rules for standard I'm sorry, I just hit the microphone. We already have special combat rules for standard combat, which is great. But this is going to be all of those other things, the things that a lot of times people are having to ask advice for how to do this or that or whatever. I would not count outdoor distances in that because typically people are just like, well, it's just 1-to-1 scale. It's going to be the same regardless. In this, you just convert it to yards. So, 70 feet becomes 70 yards, that kind of thing. So they can move farther, they can shoot farther, that kind of thing. And I'm cool with that. It's simple, it's really just, it's not a big deal. Mass combat. So mass combat, this probably deserves a video of its own. The mass combat rules, the siege combat rules, all that kind of stuff. It probably deserves a thing of its own, because then I know that people are actually going to care about me going through it. But what I'll just say, I'll just render my opinion, is that it sounds like a really well done, simplified version of the standard combat with the things considered that you would want to have considered for handling more troops involved. So, you don't break things down into my side, your side, my side, your side, my side, and all those kinds of things. It's a lot shorter of a sequence. And basically you break them up into either 1-to-5 ratio or 1-to-10 ratio. So one unit equals 5 men or 1 unit equals 10 men. That determines how long the rounds are. As far as, anything beyond that, I mean, rounds are still going to be rounds for the most part. That's really not going to change. How cover works is going to be a little bit different. You do have some adjustments that you're going to make based off of the fact that you're dealing with terrain. In a lot of times it's, they might be using the terrain defensively or offensively, but not both at the same time. So, they can get a bonus on shooting more accurately, or they can get a bonus on hiding from the opposing missiles, whichever they're trying to do. So that stuff is pretty neat. Now, they don't actually die, like run out of health necessarily. It basically runs off of a morale thing, and then you just do a check on the morale chart to see what happens. So, and there's a broken state. Basically, they can't make any attacks, and so there's a bit of granularity to it. It's not, it's not super simple, but at the same time, I could see it working out well. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably try and do a video, running through it, through the procedures, and then just doing a combat with somebody or by myself. We'll see if I can get a friend to do it with me, which I probably will be able to. Then, we'll just run through one, and, we can see how it works. Siege combat. Actually, let me check comments. Spider says, so you feel that they are giving solid tools in the book, but no good instruction on best use? Yeah. I mean, like you have basically, yeah, it's like somebody giving you, a tool set and not telling you what telling you what they're for, but not necessarily showing you how it's done or how to put them into place. That's kind of what I get here. So in a way, it kind of feels a little bit more advanced. You like it like designed perhaps for somebody that's a little bit more advanced, because then okay, well, I mean, this is the general procedure that I would check. I'd probably do it, like this often or whatever, and even if the book just said you're going to want to consider these things, even if it didn't tell you what exactly they were going to say to do, that would be nice. So that's just my personal thing. That's one place that BX is going to pull ahead, in my opinion. Okay. So siege combat, I like this. I like a lot of stuff about it. So as far as the way that it handles catapults, they're going to hit about as often as they don't, as far as, actually hitting a unit, however many that composes, or hitting a wall. It's about a 50-50 with a heavy catapult. But the question is, and it has what to do if it misses. As far as damage goes, 1d100. So I like the fact that it's so wild. It could be 100 points or it could be 1 point. I like that because it kind of shows that, it's really a huge matter of luck as to how bad this is really going to get you if you're within the radius of this thing. So I like that. And also has structural damage. We'll see some more stuff about structural damage, we can get a better idea of what that's going to do later. So, I mean, this does 2 points. That will come in later, because later on you'll see that a lot of the structures have maybe 40 points of structural damage they can take and all that kind of stuff. The light catapult is going to hit more frequently, but it just doesn't cover quite as big of an area. And it does a little bit more structural points of damage. So, it's interesting. Basically, I like it. I want to give it a try. Matt basically says you could also just use a literal war game to handle things if you want, but this is just, his quick and dirty rules, basically. And I think they're pretty reasonable. Your battering rams are going to do quite a bit. You got siege towers and ladders. This is a note here that, basically says that historically, a lot of times what they would try to do is just starve people out rather than trying to break in. And from everything that I've understood about historical siege battles and all that kind of stuff, it sounds like that's true. But, basically just kind of says that this is more fun. So, yeah. And he just says why he isn't, why some of this stuff might be a little bit better for a war game, but, most people aren't going to want to do the whole process of a war game just because it requires a little bit more work. We have rules for undermining walls, basically digging under walls in order to help them collapse, just to give them a little bit of an extra hand in that. Boiling oil, which we all love. I mean, who doesn't love the idea of dropping boiling oil on a-holes that are trying to break into your castle? Dropping rocks. You got some mantlets for just using as cover. The aerial combat rules. Now, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like I've heard these rules or something similar talked about quite often as being the considerate, like what not Matt Finch's version, but like the olden day version, as being an inspiration for critical hits. And I want to say it was Mike Carr that did it. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am. But the reason that I say this is that, like, the aerial combat is very very specific, and it has a very strong logical consistency. Everything from, how much they can turn, like shift their course and all that kind of stuff depending on their size. Basically, to climb altitude is going to take more movement than to descend or to dive. And then you have all this stuff about, well, if you're facing each other head on and you're, trying to hit each other, then you're more likely than not to hit these parts than these parts, that kind of thing. So your probabilities are dependent on all that kind of stuff, which it's really interesting. Aerial combat's not something that's ever really come up that much. It's usually there's something else that's flying, and then we're just not going to worry too much about the rest. I mean, and there's no consideration here for this isn't how you handle like a magic user who casts fly on themselves. This is for, winged things, because they have to deal with that kind of stuff. It's not the magical flight. But one of the things to look at, so it has chances for critical hits. And then if the critical hit happens, what is the result? You've got die rolls for it. So rider has to retreat in almost every case of a critical hit. Might be a fall and crash. It might be they have to land kind of thing. And you have some clarifications on that. So let's see. Oh, Robbie Mack, what's up, man? Good to see you. Doof, how's it going? I don't know what you were making the face at. Okay, hand-to-hand combat. So I mean, this is just how you handle if they're like actually like riding things and just beating each other up. It's basically you can't attack behind yourself in that situation, really. Ship combat is pretty reasonable. There's not a whole lot to it. It's more just about the fact that it's going to be a lot slower than all this other stuff. Your crew can get fatigued if you're using oars and stuff like that, and what the relative size of these ships are, how wind affects it, all that kind of stuff, and what kind of speed that they're going to have. What happens whenever you are trying to board each other, ram each other, all that kind of stuff. So you got structural points so you can destroy them. I see the catapults here, and it just makes me sad. Catapults, I mean, I understand that it makes sense for the kind of stuff that they're trying to do, but I like cannons. I'm sorry. I like cannons, but I also like guns in my D&D. So I'm the odd one out there, and I understand that. You got your prices. You got how much of a crew you need, which is really great information to have, because I always underestimate just how many sailors you need for pretty much everything. Okay, treasure. So treasure is not going to use treasure types. That's the kind of thing that we would see in BX and AD&D and stuff like that. Instead, it's EXP times about 2 to 4, somewhere in that region. And then you take that value in gold pieces. Woo. Sorry, my bearded dragon just did a move. You take that number in gold pieces, and then you can trade things out for stuff other than gold, basically. So, it's, I don't know. I feel like it might be a little bit more work. I've never done it that way. I'm going to try it out and see what happens, because I don't like to just say bad, bad, bad without trying a lot of times. But I don't know. I kind of like whenever it's just like, nope, you just go through the procedure for this treasure type or whatever, and just liking what you get. It's just, I don't know. We'll see how it works. We'll see how it works. One of the things that I appreciate is this little thing right here. It's just a little statement about, how much treasure they're going to find versus the challenge and all that kind of stuff. It's just, but overall, it just sounds like great advice. It says, you cannot make the game perfectly fair. Trying too hard is not worth your time, and too much fairness feels artificial to the players too. I mean, it's a very, very, very small little thing here, but I feel that it applies to almost everything in terms of running an old school game. You're always hearing about balanced encounters and making sure that everybody gets what they're supposed to and all that kind of stuff. And there's just a certain point that at that point, it just, I don't know, it feels fake. It feels really fake. And, that's what, I don't want to, I don't want to throw shade, but I was going to say that's what fourth edition was for, is, for making it extra gamey. I feel like this is a very good statement. Long story short. So once you figure out like which things you're going to have, so you're going to trade out, 1,000 gold pieces, then you can roll D20, and you're either going to roll once on medium gems and jewelry table, or if you roll 20, you roll on medium magic items table, that kind of thing. So, you just follow the directions there and you get stuff. So, it's a roll, and then it's a roll, then it's another roll. I mean, whenever you do the treasure type process, it's not too dissimilar. You go through the whole list of, there's a 10% chance of this, a 20% chance of this, and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I don't know. That one requires, I was going to say that one requires less thinking. So, but at the same time, in this way, if you're the controlling type, you get to control a little bit more the output of magic items and stuff like that. Maybe you just want them to find more gold. Maybe you just want them to find more magic items. I don't know. Okay. So magic items, I really don't have a whole lot to say about this. I mean, if you've seen magic items in any old school games that are D&D based, it's going to be about the same, especially if they're retro clones. I mean, your potions are going to take 1d6 plus 6 full turns. It doesn't really say it, but usually you don't want to tell them how long. I did it in my Discord game, but it's because they could see my rolls anyway. The selection is pretty decent. What am I going to say about that? Nothing really to say. I had that whole crazy thing happen from the gaseous form spell. Potion. Somebody drank a gaseous form spell, went inside of a dragon's nose, and used a weird power that they had picked up to blow themselves up inside of it. To just nuke the thing. It was really funny. But the only stipulation here is equipment's left behind. Only the body becomes gaseous. That really still wouldn't stop it. He'd just come out naked. So scrolls. I mean, again, there's really not too much to say with scrolls either. It's about the same as you would expect with anything else. You do still have cursed scrolls. It does say they can, let's see, a successful saving throw allows the reader to avoid the curse. So, whenever they read them, give them a saving throw. And if they fail, then they're going to have these sometimes terrible effects. I like them, because it could be anything from they act randomly, to they're blind for up to 180 minutes, or they become permanently shorter. They smell bad for up to 8 days. I like it, but some of them are pretty painful. Magic items and weapons, this you got like there's not quite as much variety in the swords, the magic swords, as you get with BX, but you still get some. So I mean, magical swords are still the bestest, and if they're unique, they get some extra qualities. But there's not a whole lot of them. Take that or leave it. Again, it's a tool, so make your own magic swords from scratch. Make your own magic items completely from scratch. This is just your starting point. That's part of the reason why I'm not too super worried about that kind of thing. As far as this goes, there's a decent list of things to include, but I have never not wanted more magic items in my books, just period. All right. So we have remarkable magic items. So wands, you can actually recharge them, but there's a chance that they will break. They don't have a whole lot of charges typically, between, usually less, 10 or less, sometimes more. The ones that can't be recharged tend to have a little bit more. Rings, you can only wear 2, 1 on each hand. I kind of like this because it makes it sound like there's some kind of critical mass thing. Like if you have 2 rings on one hand, then like the pressure of that magic just constantly sitting on your fingers is going to screw with you somehow. It doesn't say what will happen if you wear more. So have fun. Maybe it puts some kind of weird curse on them. Who knows? Then they'll think the ring is cursed that they just put on. Just ask them which hand you put it on. Yeah, I don't really have an issue with the magic rings. I always have a thing about X-ray vision because there's just so much that could be debated about how well you can see. Can you see the lack of something? All that kind of stuff. Because it says you can see through solid rock, but see what? Can you see emptiness? What does it look like? All of that kind of stuff is really weird. Staves. Now staves, look at that. Most staves carry 200 charges. What? It's pretty nuts. I mean, at least the resurrection one says they only carry 10. Even that 10 is quite a lot. 10 is quite a lot. I mean, you could always just say this one is like legendary. It barely even exists if it does. But that's a lot of oomph, for a game, especially if you have a healing staff that has 200 charges. I mean, that's nuts. At least only the cleric can use it, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Here we have our miscellaneous magic items. This is all the cool stuff that we're used to. You got your Cloak of Elvenkind, your Bracers of Defense, your Bag of Holding, your Boots of Flying, your Carpet of Flying, all of that. And then you got these little notes here about which classes can use them. A means any class. F is fighter. T is thief, etc. C is cleric. Okay. Greater miscellaneous ones. I mean, basically the same thing. It's just broken up into a different category. You got your good old deck of many and all of the wonderful things that it does. And you got your cursed items. What do those do? There's not, one of the notable things that is missing is the the girdle of, what is it? I can't remember what it's called. You know, the one that makes you switch your sex. It's not there. All right, so we're almost at the end. So we have high level characters, you know, just basically they might start getting strongholds or whatever. And as far as the stronghold stuff goes, you know, you just have some general guidance on what it might look like, you know, the population, taxing. Um, Here's the thing about structural points I was talking about before. So remember, you know, those catapults are doing like 2, maybe 3 structural points of damage. And you know, that might be up against this wall down here. So that would mean you'd have to hit 34, no, not 34. What am I talking about? 14 times with the light catapult in order to destroy this wall. I mean, or you could just bust it down with, you know, bust this part down with your battering ram and then just have, you know, you could just have all kinds of stuff happen. But there you go. You also have the values. How much is it going to cost to build this? Not really anything about how long. So you do get more, again, out of BX if you want to go into that kind of stuff. And if you want even more than that, then you're going to have to look into some other products. The hiring followers thing here is just basically, you know, you're going to have to feed them. It's going to cost about 1 GP per month to give somebody food. And you need to give them lodging. And then, you know, they've got fees and upkeep costs and however much it costs to get them equipped. And yeah. You have this note here. So you have man-at-arms soldiers that will just guard your strongholds, and then you have man-at-arms adventuring. I mean, it doesn't say anything about whether you could try and put them in a normal battle, but I would probably say that this is going to be your soldier. Like, I would say this would be your I don't know. I don't know. Because I mean, this is pretty inexpensive, and you know, there's nothing in here about, you know, having to share your XP that you earn or anything like that. But then again, I don't think this uses XP for gold either. So I guess it really just is about the money. There's nothing about loyalty checks or anything like that. You know, I find myself wanting more, but I'm not really upset at it because it basically seems to do what it set out to do. That's kind of where I land with it. So that is that. Let me see what y'all be doing. All right, so I'm going to show my face, and it's going to be terrible, but here we go. Okay. Yeah, I'm still very burnt. It's better than it was. Let's see. JP says, I think the point of the staff is that it basically lets you cast the spell whenever, almost the old school answer to MU casting regularly without adding cantrips. Yeah. I just feel that there's a better balance struck with BX because, you know, there you might have, I don't know. I just feel like 200's a lot. 200 is a lot of charges, especially if they find multiple stabs, you know. Neat says, use the deck of many things in your game or no balls. Okay. I mean, if I ever find it, I think I'll have to use it just to see what happens. K5K says, morning. How's it going? Girdle of gender change. That's what it was. Yeah. That works. Lord Fullmind says girdle of masculinity / femininity. I've seen both. That's why I couldn't really decide which it was. JP says you definitely need to pay the higher rate for dungeon delving goons. Offensive battles are a gray area. That makes, Yeah, I feel like that makes sense. I mean, soldiers, they might be able to get away with surviving a lot easier than a hireling that's going into a crypt of monsters. I would say I feel like the death is going to be a lot higher, especially because if you're a soldier, you may not even end up having to fight. It may just be you sit out on the battlefield and starve them out, and then you're done. Let's see, a 28 on a D100 required for first edition. Neat says, where'd you go to get so sunburnt? I went to the fair. I took my kids to the fair. And I was the only one that got so burnt because I'm the only one that has the redhead ginger complexion. And, we were all out there the same amount of time. It's just, I'm just lucky to be born that way, I guess. I was concerned that I was going to get second-degree sunburns because I did that when I was a kid. I went out swimming for more than 8 hours on like one of the first days of summer, and we went early, and the sun was out a long time, and it was terrible. I had blisters like this big on my shoulders and on my back, and I didn't have any on my face, which is kind of weird. I don't know if it's weird or not, but basically, because of it, I couldn't sleep with like sleeping like on my back or on my stomach or my side. I couldn't sleep in any measurable way except sitting at a desk with my head down. That's the only way that I could sleep for like a few weeks. It was kind of like that time that I stuck my hand in a cactus and like I had to deal with my hands having these tiny needles in them for weeks. It took forever for me to be able to play video games, and that was cruelty. Aaron the Tiefling says greasy. K5K says for sunscreen for the pale among us. Thank you. Yes, I mean that's the sad thing is I got there and I was like, oh man. And the thing is, you buy your tickets. If you walk out, then you got to buy more tickets. You can't walk in and out, as far as I know. And we were already there. In fact, we were like 2 or 3 hours in, and I was like, oh man, this was not a good idea on my part. It said it was supposed to be cloudy. It was not cloudy. They lied to me. Well, so now that I'm done going over the referee book, here's the beautiful it's not focusing. Focus. Okay. Beautiful referee book. Now that we got, all that looked at, I mean, it's pretty. I'm not used to books having like off-color ink, or it's got this like I don't even know what color it is. It's like a dark maroon or something like that, and having all of the illustrations like that too. I'm used to like black and white illustrations or color. Not really either. Not really that kind of thing. But I think that they used to do that with the blue ink so people couldn't copy it. Fun fairs are certainly a hat wearing shindig. My head is too big for most hats. Like, when it comes to any kind of hat that you have like little things on, that are even the ones that say all one size fits all, I just have a really, really big head. It's like, I think I'm 99th percentile, maybe even higher. So I can wear a beanie, or something like that, something that maybe can stretch a little bit. So that is something I'll do in the future, and I'll wear sunscreen. My kids didn't get burnt at all. Perfectly fine, but they have their mother's complexion. So they're jerks. Greasy says, I have a Swords and Wizardry game going on right now. It's great fun. So Greasy, I'll ask you then, what do you do? Because this is one of the things we went over. What do you do for frequency of random encounter checks on your wilderness travel? Like, do you do it once a day? Does it depend on, do you, like what, do you roll a D6? Do you roll a D8? What do you do? I'm just curious because, that's one of the things that was missing that I kind of wish that they did. 4-tone coloring, cheaper. Yeah. I'm cool with that, especially if it means that it's cheaper on our end too. Neat says the 4 ebooks had text like that for certain abilities in headers, etc. I like it. I think that for the layout, it looks good. It's easy to read. You know, it's terrible to have like just a straight background table. You know, like if it's all just white background and then text. You know, because then whenever you're trying to reference, it's not as easy. So, Greasy says I take from Beckme. Yeah, I mean that's basically kind of where I was landing. Is that I would end up just taking my procedures from there. Which that's one of the great things about OSR is you can do that stuff and it usually works fairly well. So yeah, I really that about covers it. I do like their getting lost rules, and I noticed that in this one there were some references to in the original game and all that kind of stuff. I feel like the absence of a lot of those statements in there means that a lot of this was just taken verbatim, or not verbatim, but the exact same procedure, the exact same distribution of results and probabilities and all that kind of stuff. So I'm assuming that that's the case, but if it's not, then it'd be interesting to know where the lines were drawn, and what were the things that they wanted to be added. I bought some new stuff, guys. So I'm way behind on things that I have to go over. So basically, there are a lot of people that wanted me to check out their stuff and or talk about their stuff, or I said that I would talk about their stuff, or I said that I would do an interview or something like that. And then I had the great Aaron collapse where I was just, I don't know, I was just burnt out for a while. But now that I'm back in the swing of it, I'm trying to catch up. So what this means is even though I'm showing you this, I'm probably not going to talk about it for a while because I've got to catch up. I got to fulfill my obligations that I've already made. And that's everything from interviews to reviews to even writing some modules and stuff like that. So I'm going to be busy. But so this is one of the things I picked up at the friendly local game store, which I was very happy to see. Barbarians of the Ruined Earth by Mike Evans. Now, what I probably don't need right now is another post-apocalyptic game because I'm already wanting to do Mutant Crawl Classics, and I don't want to have anything take me away from wanting to do Mutant Crawl Classics. But I really like Mike Evans' stuff. He's the one who did the Hubris campaign setting for Dungeon Crawl Classics, and it's really, really cool. He has a penchant for gonzo, dark, crazy stuff. K5K says Barbarians looks fun, just going by cover. The art is going to further that feeling, probably. Let me see if I can find a good art piece in here. I mean, whoop, you got a beast, man. Looks a little Borderlands. I haven't read it yet, so I can't really say much of anything, but it's got some cool stuff. Let me find a good big art piece. Okay, I like what is that? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. There's I just love the art style. The book, it looks nice. MSRP, I don't know, but it cost me $30 at the store. They had to look it up though. So I don't know if, that was the recommended price or what. It uses the black hack, which I don't have a lot of experience with, but I have looked over the black hack before, and it's pretty cool, simple stuff. The other thing I picked up, there were quite a few things that I was really interested in, but I'm trying to keep my RPG spending low until I catch up. But there was one thing that I was like, I got to get that. I haven't opened the shrink wrap yet, and it's fighting with me. Oh, there we go. That loud noise was shrink wrap. Okay. My bearded dragon is like, dude, what are you doing? So I saw Cyberpunk 2020, and I saw a second edition, and I saw Cyberpunk Red. Which one do you think I went for? Do 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 do. Second edition. I've already read the PDF for Cyberpunk Second Edition. Yes, this is soft cover. I'm sure they have hardcover, but this was the one that they had there, and I'm okay being kind of cheap on this. But I've already read the PDF for this. I just didn't have it in print. I was very impressed with what is in here. The only thing I didn't really care for was how net running works. I'd rather find another way to handle it. But I would like to do a Cyberpunk game sometime. I'm kind of sad. Grimm had the idea of doing Cyberpunk 2020 in 2020. And I wish that I would have come up with that. But that was when I was very, very, very deep into my old school essentials kick. So I really wasn't ready to go into that kind of stuff. So Nick says, Aaron, remember LOTFP releases 8 new books within the next few weeks. Save up. That's a very, very strong point. Very, very strong point. And Jim Raggy actually put out a new video where he was showing an unboxing of some of the new stuff that came in, and it looks pretty cool. I mean, he didn't talk about it really. He just basically said, here's the book by Kelvin Green. Here is a book that's supposed to, take care of those people that want fantasy creatures in their LOTFP. And the other one he just kind of showed the cover of. It looked neat. But yeah, I'd like to know more about what he's got coming. I know that I'm interested in Joe Bittman's book that he's publishing because it just sounds interesting. I don't know that it even really sounds, it's not system material or anything like that. It's just interesting stuff about occultism and all that. K5K says, look forward to future reviews of those products. Yeah. So, I mean, what is there to say about Cyberpunk that hasn't already been said, especially Cyberpunk 2020? I mean, probably the smart thing for Aaron to do would have been to buy Cyberpunk Red and review that, because then there's a chance that people might stumble on my channel, right? People looking for Cyberpunk 2020, they've already found Cyberpunk 2020 probably, unless they're like me. I mean, most people are going to go to the new thing. But I heard, not so great things about Cyberpunk Red. This one I know is a keeper. So I'm going to do that. As far as reviews, we'll see. I'll probably just start talking about it or something and running it. Robbie likes the Cyberpunk. Awesome. K5K says, I haven't played sci-fi for a long time. Starting to get a hankering for it. Yeah, me too. When I say long time, for me, it's probably been like a year and a half. And there's the big question of which system do I use? And there's so many that I want to play. I know that obviously Cyberpunk is sci-fi, but I don't know, it just feels weird calling it that because it just feels like a very specific type of sci-fi. I mean, I guess so is space opera, so shut up, Aaron. Who cares? Chronicles of Crimson Hound says Grimm released Punk. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Mike says, I have never seen Cyberpunk 2020 in hardcover. Oh, well then, I got it the way that it comes, and I'm happy about it. I'm very, very excited. I remember, just reading a lot of this, the descriptions and, just the layout, and it just oozes style, I looked at the front and the back of cyberpunk red, and the art just looked like high quality, like computer art, I guess. And that just kind of made me feel like I don't know if I'm going to like a lot of the art in here, for one thing. I mean, not that it's not good, but just preferences and whatnot. JP says Classic Traveler is the best. Not going to lie, there are just too many sci-fi games to play, and unlike fantasy, they are quite different from each other. Yeah. Traveler, I've heard wonderful things about. I was actually kind of, there was like a, I don't know if it was mint condition, but close to, of the original Traveler system at North Texas RPG Con. I think I took a picture of it. I realized just the other day that we have a lot of footage and pictures that I never put on the channel. And now it's like, well, that was getting close to 6 months now. It was 3 months ago. When was it? It was in June, I think. Yeah, it was in June. So 3 months ago. So I need to go ahead and put that stuff on there. Asterisk Punk Splat Punk. Okay. He did a Cyberpunk retro clone book recently. Oh shit. Grim did. Okay. I didn't know that. I wish he would have told me this. Man. I would definitely check that out. I definitely will. Games I want to run. So right now I'm really wanting to do they're all kinds. I should probably stop this video and just do another video later, because actually I have to get back to work. But I'll catch everybody later. I am going to do the update on the Old School Essentials situation. I feel like it's been resolved. I'm waiting for, I'm doing a correspondence with the owner, and it's going very well. And I'm just trying to like get some feedback on a few things, and I want to make sure I've got everything straight before I make the next video. So I'll probably get that tonight, depending on if I get a response or not. And I'm going to be doing the spells book next, I guess. Spells book probably won't take too terribly long, because I'm really just going to highlight stuff that's different or weird, and there's probably not going to be a whole lot of that. So I don't know if I'm going to do like a full this spell, then this spell, then this spell, and just do that for the whole book, because it'd take forever, and I don't think anybody would watch it. But I may highlight things that I think are interesting, and I'll probably do the same thing with monsters as well. Just go over the general, how is it laid out, and is there anything here that's kind of weird or crazy or deadly, or anything I don't like, that kind of thing. Monsters is one of those things that you're supposed to change everything about them. Spells, I feel like, you can tweak the spells. I don't know that I would like just throw out a whole bunch of them or change them too drastically, unless you have a good reason. But I feel like a lot is there's a lot to be said of creating your own spells, just like your own monsters, and like letting those be things that are in the world that they can find, and make the various magic users of the world come to life. I like it. Chronicles of the Crimson Hound said he released it so people use it for their own something punk settings. Ah, okay. So kind of like a OGL thing. Not really OGL thing, but that's cool. K5K says maybe do a Grim versus Cyberpunk comparison video at some point. I will do that. I will definitely do that. It's just, again, I'm making a lot more progress now than I was, in the recent past. So I'm actually have some days off some days, not Sundays, even though they are Sundays that I'm off. And that helps. But yeah. So I'll be doing more stuff. Anyway, y'all take it easy. Thanks for dropping by. And we'll see y'all with the next one.